What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is, because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through Scale Up Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews, and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so, into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer, or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. Today I had the pleasure to interview Flynn Blackie, and Flynn is the founder of Mod Digital and X Lounge, and he's also the winner of the Wise 20 Under 20 award. So he's just a young man, he's aged 20 now. He left school at 16 to set up his first business, which is now scaled to 7 people with a number of significant clients, including a multi-billion-dollar client. And I was really keen to try and get inside his head a little bit, get into the mind of somebody who leaves school at 16, has the confidence to set up a business and to win big clients. And I think that you're really going to enjoy this interview. And the phrase wise head on young shoulders certainly came to my mind for me with Flynn. So I was really keen, as I say, to try and get into his mind a little bit and uncover what makes him tick, what makes him different. And I really encourage you to listen to this interview and see what you think. So welcome to another episode of Scale Up Radio. Today I'm here with Flynn Blackie, who is the founder of MOD Digital and something called X Lounge, and is also the Wise 20 Under 20 winner. So welcome, Flynn. Great to have you on board.
Thank you, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
Good stuff. So what's MOD Digital and X Lounge, if you want? What's it all about?
Good question. So MOD Digital, we are we create marketing machines. A lot of people make marketing campaigns, but campaigns only run for a small period of time. And traditionally, if you look at where campaign comes from, it's a war term, right? And a lot of people get hurt. We make machines because they run forever, and they require a bit of maintenance, a bit of tweaking here and there, but they're reliable, robust, and they get results.
Excellent. So you're aiming to help people get that consistent stream of on-profile target leads for business generation.
Exactly.
And are you doing the sales piece as well, or is it simply the appointment generation? How does that bit work?
It's mostly appointment generation. We do work with e-commerce companies, and of course, for them, we get the sale for them instantly. But those are the two different sort of categories of people. We get them leads, we generate them appointments, and then the responsibility is passed on to their team, their sales team, to make the sales. But we do have we take extra care. A lot of people just pass it over. Their goal is to get volume, but we look for quality. So we make sure our clients report back to us which leads are closing. Because if we get 20 appointments for someone and 2 of them close, it might look, so 20 appointments might look good at face value. But if we get 5 appointments and 5 of them close, then of course that's a much more profitable campaign. So we look for our clients to report back on the success after the passover of the lead, if you like.
And do you structure your costs, your income based on the success?
We've tried it, but the downside of that is there are people with unreliable sales teams. So if we do, we always have a fixed fee, but sometimes we'll add in a percentage on top of that based on success. It's usually something we introduce to clients we've been working with for a while because we know each other by that point.
Okay, great. So fundamentally then, what's the difference between you and what you would say about people that run campaigns? Is it that constant fine tuning, or what is it that really makes you stand out?
Yeah, constant fine tuning. People really come to us with, again, reliability, predictability, and sustainability. We scale like a system, a machine, whereas the campaign runs, it has a dedicated budget. Whereas we have an initial budget once we get the important metric down, which is the cost per acquisition. How much do we need to spend to acquire a customer? Once we have that in place, we can scale clients from, spending £30 a day up to, 30 grand a month and beyond.
Right. Because at that point, you've worked out your return per that customer acquisition cost. So it then just becomes how much are you willing to spend? How much business do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so what kind of clients do you find work best with you?
We find a lot of clients that come to us, or I guess the stars bring us together, are people who have a big idea, who know that it will work, but just haven't been able to get in front of people yet. So it's usually people with a very unique angle at doing business, who need someone to put them in front of enough people so that they can prove that it works. They collect testimonials, etc., etc. They get the proof, and then we scale it further and further and further. Okay.
So are you able to share with us an example of the kind of client that you've worked with and the success that you've had?
Yeah, sure. So we've had, I'm sure you've seen, Omaze competition websites and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we took a competition website in the whiskey space, which hadn't been done before, from zero to, over 500,000 a year in 12 months. We took I can't say that one outside, I'm in NDA. But we have we have a lot of success stories of these ideas. We had a gardener, actually, someone who just sold a gardening program every few months, who then packaged the learning up and into a membership program. And rather than taking people on a tour of his garden, which is, a nice garden in Ireland, he now runs a global online gardening community with a ton of customers, a ton of members, and a thriving business that he can run from anywhere in the world, so long as he's filmed a bit of content.
Brilliant. And what sort of strategies do you find work best then for generating leads for those sort of clients? What is it that you do to generate those leads?
Yeah, so the number one thing people fail to do is audience research. So people say, our customers are company directors, full stop, end of sentence. We go a lot deeper. We ask, okay, what do these company directors want? What's causing them pain? Which industry are they directing? How many employees do they have? What's their turnover? What is their family life like? Are they men? Are they women? Are they young? Are they old? Do they drive, etc.? We have all of these different things that we need to look at to segment the audience, and then we will give them personalized adverts based on who they are. So the advertising we do is very targeted, but it's also very personal, and therefore we tap into that sort of background psychological element. And we therefore generate a better result.
So being very accurate and very clear about exactly who your target profile are and the kind of things that they're likely to want to hear, the messaging that they're...
Exactly. What makes them tick.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your main tool for doing that? Is it, are we talking old school sort of Facebook stuff, or is it LinkedIn, or is it, what is it? What's your main platforms that you would use?
Yeah, good question. So obviously TikTok's emerging now, and it's creating a lot of quick success for some brands, but others really don't work on TikTok. It's an interesting mix. You either have massive success, better than you could get on any platform, or you have zero success.
Right.
And it's kind of no in between. It's a real strange one. Facebook still works very well, contrary to what we're being told, because Facebook owns Instagram, and Instagram's a huge platform.
Yeah.
What's important to us, I mean, we do YouTube ads, we do LinkedIn ads, but again, as long as you can find the right people and you can, again, deliver a message that resonates with them, and position yourself as the solution to a problem that they have, or as the pathway to a deep desire that they have, then it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could walk up to somebody in the street and sell to them face to face. The problem with that is you just can't get in front of many people doing so.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the X Lounge? I mentioned that at the beginning, and you mentioned to me before I went on live on air, and you've got behind you, you've got that up on behind you. What's the X Lounge about?
Yeah. So our biggest client is have you heard of Wix.com, the website company?
Yeah.
So Wix have got a new software. They call it Editor X. And we had to come up with a very interesting and unique way to market it because, there is a trend happening in the marketing world right now, and in the world in general, where people are congregating into sort of micro communities with shared beliefs. That's why we live in a very hateful world at the moment, because it's always this group versus this group, positive and negative against each other at battling all the time. So the X Lounge is a community that we've created that I've become the face of, where essentially we attract young entrepreneurs and we deliver them a ton of value. I mean, we've got a team in place dedicated just to helping them. Like, you leave a question in our community, you'll get an answer, whether that's, I want to leave high school, how can I tell my parents?
Yeah.
Or whether that is, I have just scaled to, we've just got £50,000 contract. How can I make sure to put the money in the right places, etc.? So we have people at different sides of the journey, all congregated into one community. And the idea is that everybody in there is just pushing each other to be better, sharper, hold each other accountable. And so the way Editor X comes in is that they're the sponsor, and a select number of people can benefit from what Editor X provides because it's an exceptional website platform. I truly believe, not just because they sponsor our community, I truly believe they are the best website development platform out there.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why I reached out to them rather than them coming to us.
Okay.
We provide material and resources on how they can create a website as well for the businesses that they're creating, and we show them how to do it with Editor X. So it's not a very pushy sale at all, but in a community where there's so much value, and there's so much value in Editor X's product, the relationship was just the perfect match.
Brilliant. So that's all around the community aspect and really building a strong community. Can you give us an idea of the size of that from a community aspect, and maybe also some proxy for size for MOD Digital as well, just to give listeners an idea of sort of where you are?
So the X Lounge, we started it's been in progress since around October. It took a while to build it, but 3 months is actually pretty quick when you come inside and see what we've actually built here. 3 months is a rapid turnaround. We started off with, we got about 150 members in the first month, and now we're on month 4 with just under 800 members, but we're growing more than 100% month on month, I think. So it's like 300, 600.
Yeah.
Maybe initially it wasn't quite. However, we are an application only community, so our applications exceed 1,200 or maybe even 1,300 right now.
Oh, I see.
Free community. But the question is, how do you keep a free community with so much value based on the network inside of it? How can you make it free without getting a bunch of people who are just going to ruin the dynamic and ruin the quality and caliber of the member?
Yeah.
So we have a 10-step application process. And we have the same team that services the people inside it, go through the applications and make sure that we're vetting everyone meticulously so that our community is always of a high standard.
Great. And I'm gonna explore that a little bit, I think, in a minute, because I know, one of the things that a lot of us try and do with our businesses is to build some sort of community. So I'm going to explore that in a minute. What about the MOD Digital side? What sort of stage have you got that business to?
We've got 7 people working in our team now.
Okay.
Fully remote team. Got a lot of clients, as you can see. We've got $1 billion company. Most of our clients are making over $1 million a year. That's sort of our baseline, and we're growing very quickly.
Yeah, impressive stuff, and I certainly take my hat off to you. You've achieved a lot for your young years. I don't obviously people listening can't see you, but not sure whether I'm allowed to ask you how old you are, really. But
of course you are. I'm 20. I just turned 20.
Just turned 20, so you wouldn't qualify for the under 20 the Wise 20.
Not anymore. I won that in my last year. Lucky grab it. When I was 19. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So you've achieved a hell of a lot in a short period of time. I mean, how do you go from, because just reading your profile, I think you quite clear about the fact that you dropped out of high school and obviously business. So how do you go from doing that to winning these awards and getting a business where you've got billion-dollar client and multi-million-dollar clients, in such a short period of time with, such a wise head on young shoulders? How have you managed to do that?
I think the number one, maybe not skill, the number one attribute I have is a passion for learning. I think there's a lot of people that stay where they are because they expect to get new skills without learning them, or they expect to make big, impactful changes without understanding first how to implement those changes. And I would say the more I learn is always correlated to the more I earn. It's a saying I'm sure a lot of people have heard before, but I think you just have to be. There's a Socrates quote I love, which is, I know I am smart because I know nothing. And I think holding yourself as an amateur at everything you do and being addicted to consuming as much knowledge as possible from as many sources as possible, even if you determine it to be a load of nonsense at a later date, you've ran the test, if that makes sense. You've processed the information and determined that it's a load of nonsense.
So how do you keep yourself learning them? What sort of, you're running a couple of businesses here, how do you make time, or how do you go about learning and making sure that you really are on top of your game?
Well, I think time is a product of our values, right? Whatever we value the most, we'll give the most time to.
Yeah.
And I try to value learning above everything else. Sort of for me, well, apart from family and things like that, But I think once you have your values in order, you manage your time better, and you have to make sacrifice to the things that you value. If you value, going out every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, then something else isn't getting your time. It's not getting your attention. That's a lesson I had to learn by, okay, this weekend I'm going to go crazy as an 18-year-old at the clubs. Mm-hmm. And then, a weekend later, staying in and realizing, wow, I can actually progress my income, progress my business by spending these hours when everyone else is at the clubs, developing myself and acquiring more knowledge.
Yeah, brilliant. Good.
In terms of sources,
the
natural progression is, the natural progression probably used to be books and then, learning directly from somebody. I think now it's what you watch online, right? What content you consume.
Yeah.
Then it's books. If you can actually sit and read an entire book from the start to finish, take notes on what you've learned and apply them, you're going to make a lot of progress. And then after that, for me, I learn better from online videos, but in a subject matter where I prefer paying for a course than trying to acquire everything for free on YouTube. Right. I think when you pay for something, you give it more value, even if the content is better on YouTube. Right. Because you've paid for it, you're more eager to make a return, and therefore you'll give it more of your attention.
Yeah, fair enough. So it sounds like then that you're fairly avid. Would it be fair to say you're a fairly avid watcher of and a consumer of these kind of
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you devote a certain amount of time a week to it, or is it just organic? As you go, you need something, you find it.
No, I aim to do at least an hour a day.
Okay.
And that's sort of a minimum standard.
Yeah. Brilliant. No, very, 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 very impressive. So, take us back then to, let's go back to that community then while we're at it. What do you think are the key reasons why some communities succeed, if you like, and others don't? So if somebody's trying to build a community, what are some of the things they need to think about?
I think an early sale kills a community. I think, if you prematurely go in, bombarding them with sales material, notifications get turned off or they leave.
Yeah.
We actually had a conversation, myself and Editor X, yesterday, and I'd done some competitor analysis, and I think the biggest strength in a community, we get a lot of people saying the reason they joined is because they want to be a part of the X Lounge early. And of course, when someone wants to be a part of something early, it means that later they think something's going to explode, something's going to be great.
Yeah.
And I think what's most important for us is being able to show the vision, being able to say, look, here's where we are now. We've got a hell of a long way to go. Here's where we want to be. And then you attract people who can align with that vision,
right,
who can see themselves being there when it is realized. And then they want to be able to associate themselves and feel the success of the collective group, the collective community. It's like a rocket going to Mars. I think I actually used this in one of our marketing videos. They can see themselves living on another planet with everything being so much better. But they want to board the vessel and take off before they either have to pay to get there or can't get there at all.
Okay, great. And how do you, with that idea of the rocket as well, you're also, with your community, you're wanting the people that have decided to come on the rocket, you want them to be telling some other people as well, and getting more people to fill the rocket up. So how are you encouraging that?
I think it's self-fulfilling when they join. We don't actually ask for referrals. I think we should. There's no reason not to ask for referrals. It's probably something we'll implement in the next month or two. But I think they just see what it's like inside of there. Well, I think when you build something great, as a marketing agency owner, right, I see a lot of people who think they need better marketing to grow.
Yeah.
When all they need is just a better product. They just need to make what they're doing better, and the growth will come naturally. But you get these. We had a client. We don't lose a lot of customers. We have a very good retention rate. But if there's a story of someone who left us recently, it was very much history repeating itself. When you get added to a Facebook advertising account, you can see previous campaigns and who they were launched by. Okay. And I'm looking at this client and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agencies just in 2021 or something like that. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
We certainly stayed longer than all of them. I can actually see that they've dipped in performance after leaving us. And there was no bad blood or anything like that. It's just a founder who thinks he needs better marketing and he's constantly chasing something that will never arrive because he just wants new strategies and campaigns when he should have just focused on lowering his product cost so he could sell it for less, right, delivering more value to his customer, and therefore he would grow quicker. But there's just some people that don't get that aspect of it, and I think they suffer, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah, great, good. So take me back to school. I'm keen to get into your head a little bit because we deal a lot with people who say they're entrepreneurs, right? And really, really many of them are not really entrepreneurs. They're people that have decided that they want to run their own business, and that's great. But there is a difference, and I get the feeling from what you've done already, that and clearly the fact that you've taken the leap out of the system, if you like. You've broken the mold. You've decided that's not for you. You've gone and done something else, and here you are. You've created one very successful business already by the looks of it, and another one really building on that community. Take me back to what's inside your head when you're at school and you're thinking about maybe dropping out at that point and going your own way.
Well, I've had a lot of people actually message me who've seen my story who want to leave school. And the first thing I say is, what's your plan? And a lot of them say, not sure yet. And I as much as I'm an advocate for leaving school, because I don't think necessarily you need it, I'm not an advocate for leaving without a plan in place or without anything. A lot of them are just leaving on if I leave, I'll be able to do this.
Yes.
If you're incapable of starting something whilst at school, your skills or your mindset will not serve you well when you leave. Because if you can't come home after a 7-hour day and devote a little bit more time, when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be working a hell of a lot more than 7 hours a day. And I think a lot of these people who message me see the glamour of it, see the nice high school dropout, but don't they underestimate what is necessary to make it happen. So for me, I had started making websites. I knew digital marketing was going to be my route, and I knew that I wasn't going to go to university or college, and I didn't really care about getting more qualifications. For that reason, I left. But I think if you don't have a plan, you should, because you're better at least learning the maybe 20% of things at school that are actually applicable to real life. That's probably where I'd put it. I've not been there for 5 years now, but when I was there, it was around 20% that you could actually use. You're better learning that 20% than learning nothing. So that's the advice I always give.
Very good.
But I think if you have a plan and you have conviction, that was all I had. I've made, at the point that I left school, I probably made about £2,000 from making websites, so not an awful lot. Like it wasn't.
Well, you say that, but I'm not sure there's that many people at that age that that have seen £2,000 unless it's been given to them by somebody else.
Perhaps. But I mean, that was like 6 months of work, and I suppose at 16 you should hopefully be fortunate enough to still live with your parents, and not be, having to fend for yourself if you do decide to drop out of school.
Yeah.
But £2,000 in 6 months is certainly less than the minimum wage, certainly less than the living costs. So I obviously had the ability to stay at home, and I think most people will, but I just knew I was going to make it work, and I knew that I had found an avenue, and I knew I could develop my skills further to take it further.
And what gave you that confidence, do you think? Because you clearly had that conviction that you'd had the inklings, you'd had a big beginnings of somebody's parted with some money for you building them a website or two. So you got the beginnings, but what gave you the confidence that you got a plan that you could actually go and deliver on?
I think it was the beginnings that gave me it. I think the fact that I had made that money, when, as you say, a lot of 16-year-olds hadn't seen that kind of cash ever unless it was waved in front of them. That was where the confidence came from, and it was certainty that the other option wasn't for me as well. So it wasn't only that this option was so great and so good, it was also just like, I've zero interest in going to do another layer of exams, because all I'm going to do is delay doing this for another year. That was literally it. So the conviction came from the fact that the first website I made and presented to somebody, they paid me for. And then after that, I just kept looking for other people, family, friends. Who do you know that's got a business? How do they have a website? Is it any good? Do you think they want a new one? And I'm just trying to grow like that.
Great. And tell me about your family, your parents. What was their reaction when you told them that you're going to drop out of school?
I think my dad was all for it, because he could see the conviction. But I think as a mother, a mother's instinct is safety.
Yeah.
Very risk averse. And I think in her head, all I was saying was, I don't have a plan B. And I think she wanted me to have options, and therefore she wanted me to at least have my higher grades.
Yeah.
But eventually I won her around. She was my first big sale. That's when I knew I had a good sales ability. It was when I convinced her.
Yeah, your mum was your first big sale because you convinced her that it was going to be all right.
Yes, exactly.
And do you come from an entrepreneurial background?
No, my dad, he grew up in a council estate, but he did well for himself. He made it out. I would say I get a lot of resilience from that.
Yeah.
From that background, there's a lot of paths that he could have went down, but he chose to, make a life for himself. And he went on to have a good career in pharmaceutical sales. But my mum works in a school as a secretary, so it wasn't like a business owner family.
Yeah.
I didn't have any investment from anybody. It's all bootstrapped, and it's all a result of taking a 50% deposit for the first websites I made, and then just continuing to build up cash until now, where we had enough cash to hire our first people, and then we got retainers, etc., etc., etc.
Great. So so tell us about what you've learned then in those what is it 4 years or so? Is that about right from what you said?
Yeah, about right.
So what surprised you then? About being an entrepreneur, about setting up the businesses in your journey so far.
Well, one thing that was surprising is the difference in the mindset from a millionaire to a non-millionaire, right?
Okay.
It's a difficult thing to phrase, but let's say, for example, we make a proposal to $1 million company or £1 million business. They will take action a lot quicker. Obviously, there's an argument there that's because they have more cash, right? But the potential return for them initially can be a lot lower than what it is for a smaller business. There's a lot more reluctance, and that surprised me. I'm not sure why it did, but I just thought, oh, millionaires must all be really, really, careful. They must be, keep their pockets closed, etc. I think that's sort of the image that we're told about them. But no, I found it was quite the opposite.
Okay, and so what other what do you think? What other insights has that given you then into the mindset of people that are running those sort of size businesses and above?
Yeah, and I think what they look for. So there was more reluctance in my age. Age was a much bigger objection for businesses that were less successful than the guys who were thriving and at the top.
Okay.
Or doing very well. Like the millionaire entrepreneurs that ended up hiring me to do work for their business were impressed and excited almost about the fact that I was young.
Yeah.
Whereas other people were like, oh, what does he know? He's just a kid, etc. So I think there's just an ego block for a lot of these people. They think that they're above everyone, and then the people who are above them end up being much more open-minded and kind.
Interesting.
On a broad basis. Obviously, that's not a full stop at the end of it, but from my experience, that's what I saw.
Okay. And I can get that. I can relate that back to a couple of other experiences in my past, I think, where when people have, if you like, made it, they've got to a point where they no longer feel they've absolutely got something to prove to others. Then I think you're right. I think there's something then that frees them up to look for the good and the opportunity in other people, as opposed to having to kind of convince themselves maybe and thinking others that actually they know better and they're good and they're and they deserve to be there. So I think I can imagine how that might be. It's really interesting that you've brought that up. Actually,
it's like when they no longer feel the need to prove themselves, they'll let others they give the opportunity to others to prove themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lesson in there that I think also comes with when we're building a business. And I'm going to ask you in a minute about taking on people, because obviously that's something that must be brand new to you. You've never done it before. So I'm definitely going to come back to that in a minute. But we often see with entrepreneurs and business owners, when they're building their businesses in the early days, they've got to drive everything, and they've got to feel that they know the answer. And if people come to them, they can tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But that's a self-limiting belief that gets them so far. And unless they can then kind of, if you like, hand over the reins and give people the freedom and create other leaders within the business, then they're going to put a ceiling on the business for themselves. And I think from what you're saying, that's sort of, they're linked in that a little bit, in that we get, if we can make that transition, that we can then be supportive for others, then the chances are we can be much more powerful in terms of the success that we can have, than if we try and keep that control and that limit it to our self-beliefs.
I think one of the ultimate forms of power is empowering others.
Okay.
If you can remove your need to control everything and give up control, if you're confident enough that the people you trust can manage things in the way that you want, and even put their own spin on it, and I think that actually elevates you a lot more than people who see power and see influence as controlling absolutely everything. I always look for exceptional niche talent. So when I'm looking to make a hire, I want to be very specific about what I want them to do. I think I'm pushing that a little bit now, because I think most businesses are, especially, you look at the Twitter, Facebook layoffs, they're trying to get a lot more out of their people. And so right now, rather than hire an extra, I'm trying to push and maximize my team.
Mm-hmm.
But I always look for a subject matter expert to come in and champion that for us. I look for people who are better than me at what they do, but that need the direction just to be able to apply their skills in the right environment or the right way.
Excellent. So what have you learned then about hiring people? I mean, that's there's a couple of good nuggets there. Now you've got 7 people or so, and you said they're all remote. What have you learned then about managing and leading people?
I think, well, autonomy, as we just sort of discussed there, is you got to give it to them. But I think I'm clear on the subject matter expert leading it, but I'm also clear on what I expect of them. So I need to be sure that I know what success looks like. That's something I try and communicate to them is, look, you're much better than me at this. That's why I brought you in here. But I know what success looks like. Here's what I'm expecting of you. And then obviously I go into more detail of, I want it by then. The dream result looks like this. The lowest standard I'll accept is this. If you need anything from me and to make that happen, other than what you've got right now, don't tell me the day before it's due. Tell me as soon as you need it.
Great. And how do you then keep control of and make sure that people are then delivering on what they're doing? What's your checks and balances?
Does the desired outcome match the outcome? So does what they've submitted match what I've asked them to submit?
Mm-hmm.
But then aside from that, it's obviously you've got to motivate them to want to do, to want to match it. Otherwise you're going to have a very quick cycle of people coming and going because nobody can do it. So I have to touch base with them and make sure my expectations are realistic. I will push my team further than they've hopefully ever been pushed before. I want to get as much out of them as possible and tap into their potential. David Goggins talks about the 40% It's either the 40% rule or the 40% effect, basically saying everybody only works at 40% of, or everyone is only at 40% of what they can be. So even if I can take them to 60, 70%, then that's still better than what most managers will get out of their people. But I have to bring myself down and, you know, deploy empathy, if you like, and make sure that they are communicating to me. All right, chill out, Flynn, right? You're asking too much, mate. But I actually I recorded a TikTok about this the other day. I'd rather get halfway to a massive goal than complete a small one, right? Yep. Complete a tiny goal. So I set my expectations high so that the minimum standard is subsequently high, and we get better results and output consistently.
Like it. Good. And what have you got wrong from a people aspect? You know, something that you know you can think of. You know, I wouldn't do that again, or maybe I could have done that better.
I think hiring too quickly.
Okay.
When we are, this is kind of how we market to people. We look for people who are in deep pain and present ourselves as the solution. But when emotions are too high, you make worse decisions typically. Something I've come to learn. And when I leave it too long to hire somebody, or I don't have a measure in place for if someone was to leave, and I find myself in desperate need, I found that I hired lesser people. And I think you just need to give it time till you find the perfect fit, because the only problem you're going to have is somebody who isn't a good fit for your organization staying there and delivering it, you know, fit 60% of what you really wanted out of the person fulfilling that role. So you're going to get 60% work for as long as you can take it, right? Whatever your fuse, however long your fuse is going to last, whether it be 3 months, 5 months, 12 months, God forbid. By the time you tick, you've got 60% of what you could have had. And then you have to go out and do the hiring process all over again. So I think it's a difficult challenge filling the void in the meantime. But if you can be patient enough to conduct all the interviews of everybody who you've got, even if there's one next week because they were away and couldn't make it, but just making sure that you don't settle for the best of what you've got, you settle for the best.
So if you had that experience then, and if you had to then part ways with somebody,
it's the most difficult thing I ever done was getting rid of the first person that worked for me on a longer period. So at the start, I was just hiring people for, you know, contractors, gig stuff. So do this, pay per project. That's the project done. I'll not speak to you again, or if I need you in the future, we can reconnect. Then I took somebody on and worked with them for like 3-4 months. That was the first person I was working with on a consistent basis. And that was when I was still 16, or maybe I was 17 at that point. But I knew it was very obvious I had to get rid of them because our dynamic changed, because we were bringing on a second person. And I needed this person to attend a recurring meeting, and they didn't. And they wouldn't. I gave them a chance. I told them, I asked them why. They joined once and never spoke. It was just like, what is going on here? But that was at the very start, and I didn't know what I wanted out of people. But wow, what an intimidating conversation, telling somebody you can't work together anymore.
So how did you handle that?
Well, I educated myself. I thought, right, I need to understand what the best way to deal with this is. I brought them onto a call, and at this point, it was like the decision was made. There was not really, like, it was just clear we weren't a good fit. They weren't even full time anyway, so it wasn't like I was, you know, ruining somebody's, you know, putting somebody out of pocket that in desperate need of a job that couldn't look after their family or anything like that. But I educated myself on the best way to break off, and executed it in a manner that I saw fit. And then they didn't speak, they didn't say a word. So I had, you know, in a proper environment, when someone's being let go from a company, another person it during the conversation is terminating all of their accounts. So I had all of their accounts up on the screen. I had to like delete all of their logins whilst as soon as the conversation ended. It was a strange time, but it was a good learning experience.
Yeah, great, good. All right, and I think going back, some really good things in there, including the being patient with the recruitment. And there's somebody a lot wiser than me that intentionally said if your reaction to somebody is not hell yes, got to have them, right, then you shouldn't do it. If it's like, well, they've got some good points and some but they seem okay, that you really should just say nope. If I can't say hell yes, got to have them, they're not. So I'm interested, going back to some other things you were saying earlier on as well about the mindset of the millionaire type client being a bit more open to maybe young age and new things than perhaps somebody with a smaller business. What about your multi-billion-dollar client? How's that different working for them?
Well, they are massive. So I don't speak to the founders of the company because it's a shareholder. It's all they got board, public company, etc. But the team are really good. People I communicate with are great. I think it's they have an impressive internal culture because they have highly motivated people. They message me far beyond 9 to 5, despite working 9 to 5 jobs. They're not founders. They're not necessarily entrepreneurs, but they have great ideas, and I definitely admire them for that. So I can't speak on a multi-billion pound founder, but team-wise, culture-wise, they clearly have incentivized. They have a culture where ideas are incentivized and pushing boundaries are incentivized.
Right. Great, good. What do you think is different about the mindset of an entrepreneur that from maybe people that aren't really entrepreneurs, if you like, and perhaps maybe shouldn't make? What do you think? What do you think separates maybe you and other entrepreneurs from the general population?
A complacency. I think so. A lot of people just don't do it because they're too comfortable.
Oh, I see what you mean. From them. Not I was thinking the other way around. I was thinking,
No, entrepreneurs are far from it. I think it's a potential negative, but it brings positives with it. That I think a lot of entrepreneurs just never see what they've achieved yet as good enough because they're always striving for more.
Yeah.
And I think on the flip side of that, the reason a lot of people aren't entrepreneurs is because they're just quite happy doing what they're doing, which honestly, sometimes I envy, right? It's actually sometimes I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
But I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
That voice in the back of your head which instructs you to act on an idea that you have. There's people that have plenty of ideas. I think nearly everyone's probably had £1 million idea, but they just haven't executed on it. And I think the difference is that the entrepreneurs have something in them that just, I got to do this,
Yeah. So what drives you? What's the legacy that you want to leave, or what's your big? You said you want to aim for the stars, essentially. What is it? What are you trying to achieve?
So on a personal level, I think a lot of people are ashamed to admit that they want to make money, but I'm not really, because I'm an advocate for truth. I think that's the truth for a lot of business owners. So of course I want to make money. I want to spend it on nice houses and fast cars, especially. That's the young entrepreneur's dream, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side, I think there is that complacency and comfort, but there's also fear. That's another reason why people don't get started. A lack of resource, but not so much resource in the sense of, they don't have money, they can't get started, but more in resource in the shape of others who will instill confidence in them to be able to do it. I was lucky to have internal confidence, which I found which was a result of, getting a couple clients early doors and my work being good enough to get paid for quickly.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are in an environment where the people around them will bring them down, call them unrealistic or naive. And that's another huge motivator for creating the X Lounge for me. Is it's the perfect business. I love having it. I'm so glad I was able to start it. Is that I can now bring the 16-year-olds who find themselves in the same shoes as me and accelerate their growth because they don't have all of the voices, holding them back, telling them they're unrealistic. So that's a massive thing for me, is being able to just, hyperact or accelerate the journey for these people and remove that massive objection that other people bring to them from the top of their minds.
So what do you love most about what you do?
Well, from on that note is already being able to see the result, the impact that we're making, being able to see people who I never thought that this was possible. And I'm thankful to Editor X for sponsoring us, because I could not sustain this business. It's expensive. Providing the infrastructure that we do, providing the resources, and providing literal people in there to ensure that this network is high quality and has motivated individuals. So I think being able to make an impact there is great.
Yeah. Okay. And what frustrates you most about about business or whatever, actually? But what sort of things frustrate you?
I think it's frustrating when you're on a high and get knocked back down, but it's a necessity, right? When you score a few big deals and then one person leaves, right? That's a bit of or in that instance I was explaining earlier, where you've got somebody who is doing better than they've ever done with any other agency, but because of a limiting belief that they have, or because of the way that they've wired themselves in business, they go away and they jump ship because they've got that sort of shiny object syndrome. They just want to go away and start the next thing that's booming, trending. That's frustrating when you've done a great job for somebody and you know that they won't get the same level anywhere else, and yet they still go away and do their own thing. But it's just a fact of life, and it's something I've learned to deal with better, because it can be really frustrating. But you just have to appreciate the people that have stayed, the people who you are getting great results for, and just continue to do it for them nonetheless. Yeah,
brilliant. So where do you want to be in 5 years? What does success look like for you in 5 years' time?
Good question. More money, of course. I would like to have acquired a few businesses by then.
Okay.
And I want to grow my team out, but I'd like to maintain it in the remote way we're doing it. I think we are going, the team that we have, the 7 of us, are all going to, the company's paying for everyone to get together. So that's going to be exciting. We'd like to repeat that. So scaling that up will be fun, doing it more often and bringing everyone to one country, one city, one hotel or villa, whatever we decide. But that's going to be exciting. But in 5 years' time, it's I think the way that we're growing and the speed that we're growing, it's almost I'm almost incapable of thinking that far ahead, because the way that the growth is stacking right now, it's just a sort of a straight line upwards. Obviously, the straight line is balanced out by dips, but we're growing so fast that we'll have a serious business in 5 years and a lot of money to play with, to do what we like.
Brilliant. Good. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking with you, Flynn, and really, really enjoy this. Are you up for a couple of quick fire questions before we close?
Go for it. Yeah, of course.
So if you were to go back to maybe when you were 16,
okay,
What advice would you give yourself now with the benefit of a few years under your belt?
Find a mentor.
Okay.
Connect with as many people as you can that can help you.
Great.
And try to help as many people in return as you can.
All right. Wonderful. You mentioned that you're constantly learning. Are there any particular, obviously we're talking about courses and things like that, but any particular, I don't know, books, resources, podcasts, resources that you'd point to, anything that you think other people should, that you benefited from that other people should be aware of?
I think it's, there's a lot of buzz around new books and bestsellers. You can very easily buy bestseller status. It's there's a trick to it. I don't know exactly what it is. I would look at books that have stood the test of time, right? Some of my favorite books are the ones that were written 30, 40, 50 years ago, and I'm now getting into the classics of, Plato and stuff like that. I think looking at books that aren't built around buzz and are built around almost like the way that they're not a campaign, if you like, they are a machine, a blueprint that's stood the test of time and is still selling to this day. Okay.
Are there any particular ones that you'd point to?
I like obviously How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that's an absolute classic. Contrary to what the title may suggest to a lot of people, it's actually just a book about being a more empathetic and nicer person. Influence by Robert Cialdini is another great book. Those are probably my top two. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like all that stuff.
Yeah, great examples of ones that have stood the test of time, and lots of other books are kind of based on some of those things, aren't they? And you can trace them back to those. Great. What apps or bits of technology do you love, or would you recommend?
Apps. Opal. It's a better way of blocking your screen time. So phones are a massive distraction. I fell victim to that for a while. I downloaded Opal. It blocks your screen time a bit better. Whoop. I think Stephen Bartlett's just become an investor in it. It's like a wearable armband that tracks your sleep, tracks your performance, how ready you are to take on big tasks and things like that. And I like to write all my notes, so I would say Good Notes is pretty good. And get yourself an iPad and an Apple Pencil, but don't use it to sit and watch Netflix on a bigger screen.
Brilliant, good. Who's had the most influence on you? Who do you look up to as a business leader?
Good question. I think it's so spread because I try and get as much from different sources as possible. There's a man who nobody will know. You probably can't even find him on Google. His name's Anthony. He's one of my clients. He's given me a lot of good nuggets and pieces of advice. Other than that, it's so widespread, but I'm sure if anybody was to follow me or join our community, we put different advice and different resources that we like in there. So
brilliant. And I sort of asked this a bit earlier, but if you're giving advice to people around how to be effective with their marketing, is there a particular nugget that you'd give, or what's your most effective tactic for generating high quality leads as a machine?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said kind of in the start, it is find out who your customer is, what they want, and then go out and get it for them. Right. Find out exactly what they want, exactly what's keeping them awake at night, what's frustrating them, and then just be the person that can take them from frustration to pleasure.
From frustration to pleasure. Brilliant. Well, that's a really good note to end on. Thank you very much, Flynn. If people would like to get hold of you, find out more either about MOD Digital or about the X Lounge, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I think the thing I point to most, the platform I'm most active on is Instagram, and my username is just FLXNN, so Flynn, but with an X rather than a Y. or the xlounge.io is our website, or moddigital.co.uk.
Super. Real pleasure talking with you, and you've inspired me, and I can see why you were so successful with, for example, the Wise 20 under 20, and and I wish you all the success, Flynn. I think you're going places, clearly. So thank you very much for taking part in Scale Up Radio.
That. Cheers. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.